Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and today I'm joined by Darren and Hal from Shard Tabletop. And I totally left out a letter in your name, so it looks weird. it looks. I left out the D of all things to do. Oh boy. So if
So
you
his wife's
guys,
name Ann. We call him Aaron and Dan all the time. So it's like, just
well,
we'll make
it
that
was
mistake
saying
all the time.
it was saying Shart Abletop.
Oh
so
no.
sorry, my apologies. I just saw that and I'm like, oh, that's not right at all. But from Shard Tabletop, you guys have
There
a
you go.
VTT. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, I'll start with you, Hal, and then a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, so I'm Hal Howard, one of the co-founders here at Shard Tabletop, and let's see, we both spent like 30 years in commercial software development, at places like Microsoft and Salesforce, and doing our own startups and all those fun things, and we've also been lifetime gamers, so we've both been gaming together since like 1982 in high school, and so when we semi-retired, we thought, okay, this will be fun. Let's do a tool for playing D&D because we looked at all the ones out there and none of them really fit what we wanted, at least. And we're finding a little audience, and so having some fun doing it.
So, what would you say like the selling points of Shard is for someone that's looking to for a tabletop in the virtual space?
First and foremost, ease of use. Just like, it's going to be the easiest way to get something going. The integrated character sheet has its tips every step along the way for how to build a character. The GM tools, you can simply upload an image of a map and get started right away. Like, you don't have to do any complicated build process or anything else to get stuff going. You don't have to define light regions if you don't want to. You don't have to do any of that sort of stuff to get going. It's ease of use is the number one selling point. Second is multi-device support. It works on every device the same. So if your player's using a tablet or a phone, or we even have people that run the game from a phone, right? Run the game master setup from a phone. That's a little too little screen real estate for me, but some people make it work, right? I guess if you're, on a trip and the only device you've got is your phone, it'd be a great way to run a session. All right. And then sort of the next one is powerful creator tools. Like every tool we use to create content is available to our creators. So like you can model any construct in 5e. The fact we focused on 5e both contributes to ease of use and ease of creator tools. So we're not trying to model every game under the sun. We're trying to model the core construct of 5e. And therefore, you don't have to write any code to do anything that's 5e compatible, right? So if you're creating new spells or new classes or new items, those things will all be really easy to do, adventures, etc. And then last but certainly not least is the breadth of content that we offer in the marketplace. Part of the reason to have easy creator tools is to get the content creators on board, and we have an incredible amount of content in the marketplace from publishers like Cobalt Press. Soon Peterson Games will be on board. Soon Esper Genesis will be coming to Shard. All kinds of interesting stuff coming on in the marketplace.
So, what was kind of like the impetus, like for Shard? How did you get started with it?
You want to tell that story, Darren?
Well, it's kind of a need-based approach, right? Is that, our kids have finally gotten to an age where we're not having to spend most of our kind of free time, dealing with their activities and their things. So we finally had a chance to get back and start playing D&D again. And, we were, playing pretty regularly in that. And, we were mostly doing players. We had a friend that we had met that was game mastering. So I was busy trying like every digital tool that I could find for my character sheet to kind of minimize my flipping through and trying to understand and keep track of everything. And then I think that what really kind of tipped it was, when Hal started game mastering and he was like, this is driving me crazy having to put together maps every time and erase them so they don't stay permanent on the mat and putting all of it together. So, I started, putting together some, just basic stuff to do a map and put tokens and, as these things have a habit of doing.
You forgot the part where we looked at every digital tool available and couldn't find one that was easy enough to use. Yeah.
it was definitely an issue.
Yeah.
I feel like with a lot of the VTTs out there, and there's a lot of great ones, but at the same time, I also feel like I have to learn like their version of HTML in order to do all the cool things, right? And when I see someone that runs a game through a VTT that's really skilled at it, to me, it makes me think of like a conductor with an orchestra, because there's like so much going on, and it's a little bit too much for me individually, in my opinion.
Well, and that was really something that we were focused on, right? Which is that we didn't want the game to become about the tool. We wanted the game to shine through and really be the focus. And we just really wanted the tool to make things easier for what we were doing. You know, how is it easy to get the right map? How is it easy for everyone to put their tokens on and keep up with it? And how do we kind of, help each other with character sheets and putting that together? And how do we keep up with where we are in the story? And those types of things were really the main focus, rather than, there's some great VTTs. I don't want to, bash other things, but they're kind of serving a different purpose, right? They're almost, like you said, orchestration tools, right? They're letting you kind of build your own game almost when you're doing it. And that, what do you want to automate? What do you not want to automate? How do you want to do it? Like you said, I'm going to learn HTML. I'm going to make it look exactly the way I want. And for some set of people, that's a great option. But, when we started looking around, it's like, that's, even though we're both spent years doing software, that wasn't where we wanted to spend our time. We wanted to spend our time playing the game and making that really easy. So that's how we kind of tilted all the tools going in. And that was kind of, why we wanted to focus on 5th edition, right? Not just because it's the biggest, but it translates reasonably well. And by putting one game system in, we can take a lot of those common, actions and things that you need to know and have the system know it rather than having to teach it every time.
Yeah. So to give you an example of that, one of the features we recently released, right? 5th edition spells have a certain format, right? They have certain fields that are necessary, and even in the text of the thing, it'll say, X damage of this type. Roll a D8 acid damage, or roll a D10 fire damage. That sort of stuff. So the text has a very regular format. So rather than having everybody have to come in and model all those spells, right, and write automation for those spells, we actually wrote a text parser that just rips that text apart and puts them on your spell sheet. And it's, 98% accurate, right? In terms of putting exactly what the damage type is, exactly what dice you need to roll, exactly what up level casting looks like, so that if you, cast it at a higher level, it adds the appropriate dice, and so on. And for the few exceptions, it's easy enough for the creator to go in and basically set those fields manually. But we took care of, thousands of spells that have been created over the years. As long as they follow the text pattern that 5e does, which most do, it just finds them and automates them, right? So if I'm a creator that has a book of spells, I can literally upload the text, right? Hit a button to convert them to the modeled type, and bang, it just knows what to do.
That's awesome. I find it really interesting too that both of you come from a technology-based careers, right? And you're even going,
yep.
We wanted something simpler to use than what already existed.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, if you think about the most successful pieces of software on the planet, they're written for real people. They're not written for, folks that are, programmers, right? We both early in our careers worked on email systems, right? If you had to write HTML every time you wanted to send an email, how many emails would you send, right? Not many, right? So, having very simple tools is fundamental to making software successful, right? So if you want, there's a reason that of, the audience for D&D, that less than 5% of it actually uses any kind of online tool, right? If you look at the numbers, right, like there's less than 5% of the audience that uses an online tool. We think that number can change. Roll20 and all the others can keep their audiences. We want the 95% that have never used a tool.
That is so me. Like, I've used them because I've been forced into them for various reasons. And right. Even then, like, I look for things that help me to not actually use it. Like, we play in a game every Saturday morning where the GMs like to use Roll20. Well, the best thing, that I've ever found is Beyond 20, because it just imports my D&D Beyond character sheet into that game, and I don't have to learn any of the Roll20 stuff. I can just
Sure.
click the buttons on my character sheet like I've always done.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
This does also show some of the fragmentation, right? Like D&D Beyond has done a really nice job of understanding the character sheet and building a pretty, usable character sheet for a lot of people, but it's not part of your VTT experience. So
Yeah.
you have to use these other things to kind of glue together the experience that you want. And that was kind of one of the things that we found is like, gee, the having it all together really does make a difference, so that things like dice rolls work, or coming back to new people into it. And that's like one of the things we really enjoyed, are people that have played or maybe even haven't played D&D before, that are trying to come on and learn it. And how do you kind of help that along? And like one of the things we found is like just simply having everyone's character sheet shared, so that I can say, oh, okay, look over here on this and go do that. Or even to the point of saying, I'll make that change for you so that you can do it. And then the next time they see where that is, and then they learn from it. I mean, we've done some, play sessions where we've had people that were not just new to VTTs, but had never played. And they had a character sheet and were up and playing in under 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the D&D Beyond toolset is a good example of how it can be really easy to kind of like get in and make a character with very little experience, because you just literally make some clicks on the page, and 5-10 minutes later, if you don't know how to use it, you're done. If you do, it's more like 2 minutes, right? So like anything that can kind of give people that experience coming in is going to facilitate getting more gamers into the hobby. So,
and that's precisely the way our character sheet works as well, except there's guidance right at the top of the sheet. And instead of building it in a wizard that you only see the sheet at the end, you're seeing the sheet, and the sheet populate the entire time. So you're actually seeing the sheet, the areas of the character sheet populate as you go, right? So that you learn how the character sheet works while you're building a character.
So what are you guys doing to go after that 95% of gamers that aren't using VTTs yet? How are you convincing them to bring their games online?
First run experience is a lot of it, right? People are looking for tools, right? And the first run experience on something like Roll20 is like, I've tried it. Like I get in and I go, okay, what am I supposed to do next? Right. And there's really little guidance, right? So having a first run experience that when you bring the home screen up for Shard, it basically says, here's where you create your characters. Here's where you create a campaign. And if you jump into either one of those, you've got guidance as to exactly how you build a character. Here's exactly how you build a campaign. It even tells you what a campaign is, right? Because people don't always know what is a campaign. I get the idea that I'm playing a character, but what's a campaign, right? And having that first run experience be great. And then on the front end of the funnel, it's basically, there's a little bit of advertising going on that says somebody searches for an online tool to play D&D, we're going to find it show up in the search, right? And that sort of stuff. And then the other thing is just good word of mouth on social media and appearing on shows like this, and getting people excited about playing again. I mean, the most gratifying thing to us is, we opened our beta May 1st of last year, right around May 1st of last year. And, within, a few days had people saying, we're not only playing using your tool, it saved our game, right? We couldn't play anymore in person. This has saved our game. We'd never used a VTT before, and that sort of stuff. And then a little bit later, when it got, a little bit safer to be in person, socially distanced or whatever else, we had, I remember one of the game masters coming online saying, hey, I set it. We used to play around the table in my garage, but we can't really set at the table anymore. So what I did is I spread chairs out, right? So we could all be 6 feet apart, and I put a big screen up in my thing and used the second screen feature to actually do it. And so we all now play again in person, but around a big screen, right? And in his garage, right? And like stories like that are really important to us because it's the reason we do what we do, right?
How long had you been working on this project before the end times began?
On and off for about a year, right? A little over a year before we opened up to the first people besides ourselves, right? And the first folks were just like, friends that had used it with us and were like, hey, I'd love to use it for my game. And so we did that. And then it was friends of friends. And before we even opened May 1st, we had like 500 people that were using it, right? And then, pretty quickly from May 1st to, later in the year, we did our Kickstarter in January of this year. By the time the Kickstarter started, we had 11,000 people that had registered accounts and were using the system. And, that number's only grown since then.
So,
right.
So to be clear, step 1 wasn't start a pandemic. Step 2, create a VTT. Step 3, profit.
No, it was. We started the VTT way before we knew there was going to be a pandemic.
Yeah,
we would have started a year earlier if we'd known.
Yeah, if we'd have been able to predict a pandemic, we'd have had the tools we have today. March of last year when things hit.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been one of the things that's been really great is interacting with the community and using feedback to figure out where to go, right? Like, we have our biases and that, but like the ability to kind of in real time, talk with people, get feedback, try things, hey, I made a change, try this out. What do you think? Like it, don't like it, make it more like this, and using that to kind of iterate and learn from what people are doing. I think the most famous one was, we started out playing in person. So for us, the rolling dice in person was kind of the key thing. And, we were very anti-digital dice just because we love that tactile feel of doing it. And when we started talking to people online, they were like, look, we love that too. But the thing that you lose with the online with that is that shared experience of seeing what they rolled. Right, that like, oh, you got that one, and everybody, can get that same experience rather than you roll it and you hear them moaning and you're like, what's happened? What happened? Oh, I rolled a 1, right? It's like it moved that, and that shifted us, pretty strongly to kind of go and change that investment level to actually go do the digital dice just based on that, very pointed, very useful feedback of why it mattered.
And now even when we play in person, I haven't seen my actual physical dice bag in, I don't know, 6 months or something, right? It's all digital now.
I honestly like to roll the dice in whatever medium I'm using. So if I'm gaming online, I'll roll digital dice, and if I'm gaming in person, which has not happened in a very long time, I'll roll physical dice. Have you seen? I think it was Pixel Dice was a Kickstarter not that long ago, where they have actual dice that are Bluetooth and you can roll them virtually.
Yep.
Right. There's a big problem with that. It's called context. What are you rolling a dice for? So I need to literally click on the screen that says, okay, I'm going to make a stealth check. Now, in our character sheet, if you click stealth, it would roll the dice for you, right? So here you still have to make that click to say stealth, and then you'd have to roll the die. And what happens if it's not a D20 you roll? Do we now not know, like, why did you roll a D8 when you said you were rolling stealth, right? Yeah. So like context is completely missing when you're trying to marry the physical and digital world in that way. Yeah. And like that's going to be the challenge with that. I mean, I love the concept. If they could figure out how to, make the roll action include the context, then I'd be all in on that. But like, it's a challenge for
I hadn't even thought about that. I was just busy ogling the fact that you can roll dice and make them show up on a screen.
You and thousands of other people that bought that, and then when they get it, they're going to roll for the first time. They're going to go, well, why'd you roll a D8? Why'd you roll 2 D8s? What's going on?
Yeah.
Right? And it's going to be mass confusion with those things getting injected into the chat, and then everybody's going to go, okay, well, great, that was a nice experiment.
That was a nice $300 experiment.
Dice sitting on your shelf. Yeah, it's another experiment.
And you know what? They'll probably still be happy with them.
Yeah, some will. Some will.
Yeah, if you're willing to spend that much on a set of dice, it's just, I think it's probably just about the novelty as much as it is the functionality at that point.
And they're really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation I just had with you about it is exactly the conversation we had with our community. I went, okay, so here's what would have to happen for this to integrate well. And then everybody kind of went, guess we don't need them.
Well,
but we were willing to embrace it. If people said they really wanted that thing, we'd have been all in and jumped on it, right? But
this does kind of lead to like one of the things that it's a surprisingly difficult thing is to figure out how much automation is good and how much is too much.
Yeah.
Right. clearly, if I eliminate that die rolling experience and it just says they got injured, like I lose some of that effect. But the things like, well, when do you decide if you're going to put that bonus action on there for your special ability, and does it automatically add it, or do you need to add it? And how do you adjust and model those and put it into just the right mode, right, is an interesting question. And I don't know that we've figured out the answer for it yet, but it's definitely something that we go round and round with the community quite a bit. Is, well, should that automatically happen, or should I have to choose it?
Right.
Now, do you find that you're reaching like an older demographic? Because I feel like the various people I talk to, those most resistant and go into a VTT tend to be probably like my age or your age.
Sure. There's definitely some of that, and we would have thought initially that was going to be big community and that sort of stuff. And definitely there's people in our age group that are doing it. But the fact that we support mobile devices means there's also a really young demographic on the software. Like the reality is there's we look at the spread of our demographics of who responds to our ads and that kind of stuff, and we don't collect any of that information, so we don't actually connect anything to an account that says, oh, this is a 20-year-old versus a 50-year-old, right? But based on who responds to our ads and the downstream character creation, we'd say it's a pretty normal bell-shaped curve. That there's the peak is around age 30 or something, and it falls off on the 30 to 35 bracket, and it falls off on both sides, both younger and older.
So Dave has a question in the chat here. Also, anyone else who have questions, feel free to answer them. Just please put question in front of it because it makes it easier for me to pick them out. I'm curious how y'all are managing the backlog of cool features and improvements you want to implement. Are you following Scrum or some other agile framework? I don't know what Scrum is. Sounds like a goblin curse word.
Yeah. So yeah, we manage the backlog on a Trello board, so it's a Kanban system, right? For those that know what that is, and yeah, we meet almost daily talking about different things that are going on, and right now we're kind of on a cadence where if it's a bug fix, it goes out almost immediately. If somebody reports a bug, either in the modeling of a class or in the actual software, those get fixed almost immediately, and the feature releases are on a 1 to 2 week cadence, depending on the size of what we decide to bite off. Right, so things will get deployed to the beta site more frequently than that, and then every 1 or 2 weeks we'll deploy something to production that's a new feature and that sort of stuff. So the most recent things to go out were things like the spell modeling I was talking about earlier. We implemented progressive maps so that you can have multiple images for a map. So if you've got like a lava flow or a ship sinking or any of that sort of stuff going on, you can have a stack of images that represent the map, one set of fog regions, and then slowly just switch images. So like in round 3, the lava flow has reached this point. In round 4, it's reached that point, and that sort of thing in the maps. It's great for alternate images as well. So those are some examples of things we're doing. The backlog is big, though. There's lots of stuff. Our community is never shy about suggesting new things we should do. So there's all kinds of good stuff on the way.
So what you're saying is it's going to keep you busy for a while.
Yeah, I don't think we've got any shortage of work to do. That's for sure. Both from a content point of view, the kinds of content people want, the creators we're working with to onboard, and from a just raw features of the software point of view, I think we'll be busy for quite some time.
This is actually an area where some of our software experience does pay off, right? And that we have a design that lets us move pretty rapidly. So, a lot of people are surprised that they'll come and say, oh, I found a bug. And 10 minutes later, they'll be hearing, oh, it's fixed. Go,
yeah,
and do that. And that, that helps us in that, we don't have these kind of long turns to kind of do features and that type of stuff. And it's also, I think that people are really appreciating the fact that, they're seeing the system evolve and continue to get better with their feedback integrated into that.
So is this strictly for D&D 5e, or can I play my Monster of the Week game over there as well?
it's for any game based on 5e, so it understands the 5e engine, and it's not just D&D, right? So there's lots of, like, the Cthulhu stuff from Peterson Games is coming here in early June. That's effectively all the features to support it are already in the software. We're doing some content work with the Peterson crew to get their stuff ready to go. So they'll have the whole core group and the Ghoul Island Saga and several other of their campaigns coming on board this year. Esper Genesis is an example of a sci-fi game that's going to be on later this year, so probably August, September timeframe. Based on their schedule, the Esper Genesis work will come on board. So you'll be able to play 5e based sci-fi games. We're working with another creator that's just completing their Kickstarter for another sci-fi based citizen called Eldritch Sands. So basically anything that derives from 5e, which is quite a flexible system, right? You can pretty much change anything. Like, in the Cthulhu case, they add additional skills and they have formula casting and they have, a bunch of different things that are, all fit the 5e framework. Formula casting is just a series of skill checks, right? And that sort of stuff. But we focused on 5e specifically because it was the most flexible, most popular gaming system out there, and haven't focused on any of the older editions or other systems. Like, we don't support Tiny D6 or any of the variants like that.
Yeah, when I've talked to other VTT owners that do have other games on there, like, the difference between like 5e and the next most popular game is like a huge chasm.
Well, if the only one that publicly reports statistics about what games are played is Roll20, right? And essentially, if you look at their statistics, 50% of all games are D&D 5e. There's a big group that's uncategorized that are also probably 5e, right? A healthy chunk of those. And then the most popular non-5e system is Cthulhu. Right. Well, guess what? We're going to have a 5e Cthulhu from the guy who created Cthulhu, right? Sandy Peterson is the guy that created Cthulhu, based on BRP and all that sort of stuff. And he's adopted 5e for his new company and is bringing the entire content of the Cthulhu mythos over to 5e. So if he's willing to embrace it, I think most creators should be willing to embrace it, right? I mean, he had an alternate game system he created from scratch and instead embraced 5e.
Yeah, I mean, both Monty Cook Games and Free League Publishing have taken like some of their Keystone or Quarterstone games or products and turned them into 5e as well now.
Yeah, and you get publishers like Cobalt Press that were deep in the Pathfinder thing and totally embraced 5e and lots of other examples like that. Legendary Games, you look at their website and all the creators came from Pathfinder, and yet all the current products they're producing are 5e based, right? And that sort of stuff. So 5e is the dominant game system of the moment, and if that changes, we'll change.
Well, the other challenge is doing a really good job on a game system is surprisingly hard. I mean, a large portion of my time is still going to fill out even just the 5e semantics and dealing with all the little quirks and things that are inside of it. And that's where kind of the ease of use comes, right? Trying to do that with 2 or 3 or 4 isn't, it's 2 or 3 or 4 times as much work. It's not like there's a whole lot of kind of synergy in most of these to kind of go from one to the next. So, we're trying to make it really great for 5e rather than spreading it kind of thin and having kind of mediocre implementations across the board.
Right. So an example of that for, Pact Magic, right? Implementing Pact Magic, there's only Pact Magic in the core 5e system as published by Wizards, right? In the SRD, there's only Pact Magic. There's no such thing as half Pact or third Pact, right? And yet third-party creators have created half Pact and third Pact. So we went and implemented half Pact and third Pact to support those third-party creators, right? And then the question becomes, okay, well, what does multiclassing for a Pact caster look like? Because there's no rules for that, right? And so you have to figure out what multiclassing for a half Pact caster with a full Pact caster. What does that mean, right? How does it progress? Like, those are all things you have to do if you're embracing a system.
Now I want to know what that means. I know how I would do it in my game, but how does the system handle it?
It understands multiclassing, so it understands if you had 4 levels in a half pack class and 2 levels in a full packed class, you are effectively a 3rd level pack caster, right? Or a 4th level pack caster, right? Because you get 2 for the half and 2 for the full, and you're a 4th level pack caster at that point.
Interesting. And it's one of those questions I've never had to think about.
Right. Well, when you have to model something in code, you have to think about it. And either we did it or we left it up to the reader, like, which is what every other VTT does. They say, oh, here's our scripting language. Go implement it yourself. And we're like, no, that's not the right approach, right? We want to have a consistent approach that supports multiple creators, that doesn't have, Cobalt Press going off and implementing their version of half packed and somebody else going off and implementing their version of half packed. And if you have to choose, if you multiclass a character from this one with that one, which you couldn't even do because they're on 2 different pieces of software.
Yeah.
Like you can't even do that. You can't do those things on Roll20 or any of the other systems that do, that leave it up to the third party to actually implement the character sheet.
Right? So will you ever be done implementing the 5e system in Shard? Like, is there an end in sight, or is this just like something that will go on forever?
I think the only way that it hits end is if people stop creating new stuff.
Right.
I can literally say that every big book that we've done has required the addition of at least 1 or 2 new cases that weren't there before.
Right. And then, those become generalized cases that help with the next one. Right. And that sort of stuff. So, yeah. I don't know that it ever ends. Right. I mean, I think Darren's right. If people stop creating content, then maybe it ends. But every creator we've ever met has some little quirk or twist they want to put in, and it's all good stuff. Right. It's useful. So as long as they stay within the framework of a balanced game, it's fine. Right.
But this is another area that's been really important, and I think we've kind of realized how much it is as we move forward. Is for creators, VTTs are like a really nice thing to have, and they kind of can grow the market and kind of fill in, but they're very expensive for creators. Like creating content and putting it into whatever that system is and modeling it and getting it so that it works is a huge amount of work. And if you're a small creator, it's very difficult to recoup the cost of all of that time and energy, and in some case money, to get that done. So we've really tried to invest in making it easy for people to get stuff over, right? Like import a Word doc, automatically convert monsters and items and spells from the text that's in there, to kind of make it so that it's easy for content creators to put stuff in and make that available to their customers and the people using it in that rich way. And trying to figure out how do we kind of have an ecosystem that helps support those creators is really important to us, right? Like we enjoy those creators, that like the content is amazing, and there's not a lot of support that they're getting out of the kind of larger VTT industry.
I can speak as someone who has done that, and if I got the option of creating the next project and starting that project or putting an existing project in a VTT, if I had to do it myself, I'm just going to go to the next project.
Yeah. So is this the point where we should tell people Nerdarchy is coming to Shard Tabletop?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are working on converting the out of the box encounters for us, which is done fairly well on other VTTs, and as well as the Kickstarter and everything. And I love getting as much messages that people seem to really be enjoying the product. So when you're playing your game now, you'll be able to drop those encounters right on Shard when maybe players go in an unexpected direction, or you didn't have enough time to plan this week or whatever.
Yep, exactly. So we're excited about bringing those over, and then following up with some additional content from Nerdarchy as you guys produce new stuff. We'll be happy to have it. Our customers will be happy to have it.
Yeah, I mean, our philosophy has always been to infect as many places as possible with the Nerdarchy brand.
Yep, we like it.
So now, one of the interesting things about the evolution of Shard was you didn't create it to game online when you first started doing it, and I think that's kind of like the opposite of most other VTTs.
Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't create it to be an online tool, and yet every technology it uses is a web technology, right? So we didn't create it to be this piece of software you had to set up and deploy on a local server and open the ports and all that sort of stuff.
Oh,
even though
shots fired.
and even as confirmed nerds, you might have thought that was the way we'd go.
Yeah.
No, it's built to be a web app from the beginning. And, the reason was for that is we wanted to move fast, right? And so the reality is that, every time you fire up your browser and, and go to Shard, you get a new version of the code. If a new version is available, it's there, right? You don't wait, you don't deploy it, you don't install it. It just happens, right? And then all of that code is actually running on your local box, right? The only thing that ever hits the server is coordination of state between the player and the GM, right? And security functions, like, the security functions go through the server, but that's it, right? Everything else is running locally, which makes it super fast.
The very first time I ran a stream game that I had to use a VTT for, I destroyed the Wi-Fi in my house and trying to set it up so it could work, because you had to do this thing with the ports and the router and on my one computer just had a problem with it where you couldn't even do that. And I had to use a different computer.
Yep. And they're still two very popular systems that you have to do that exact thing to this day to do. Right. So good luck.
Yeah.
Right.
And I also had a couple teenagers, and shutting down their Wi-Fi makes them very unhappy.
It's easy to get their attention, in the house,
doesn't it?
Oh yeah, you get attention, all right.
Exactly right. So so that the embracing modern technology enabled us to move fast, right, and to do things in that way. And so even though it wasn't initially written as an online tool, it was using all online technologies and techniques, right, to be fast, right, and that sort of thing. So, when we shifted to online play, it was just natural, right? It didn't change anything about the way we play, right? The only thing is we don't need the second screen anymore because everybody's got a device that's got the map up in front of them. So,
what was the experience like at your own personal tables when you started implementing this? Are the rest of your players as tech savvy as you guys are?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Both our wives play, and I think it's fair to say that they can sort of make their phone work. Is the level of tech savvy they have, and if anything goes wrong there, it's immediately, hey, can you guys help me with my phone? And so they definitely are not as tech savvy, but they both love the tool and they use it every game session. So now my wife is writing content for it. So we were writing content for DM's Guild before. She's a great creative writer. She's actually the lore master for our own homebrew world that's available on Shard. So yeah.
I don't think any of the other VTTs I don't think you can use them on your phone.
Well, you can sort of use the Beyond character sheet, sort of. You can sort of have a companion app for some of the others, but it's a different app. It's not the actual app.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. But nobody has the same app running on the phone and on the PC, which is exactly what ours is. It's exactly the same piece of software. It's for the geeks out there, it uses the React framework, which is what Facebook is written on, to scale to any device, up or down. So it knows if the device is of this size, it collapses everything into a single column. If it's as big as a tablet, it does a 2-column view. If it's as big as a PC screen, it does a 3-column view, for the game master and that sort of stuff. And so it knows how to scale up and down for the device and to create an experience that's appropriate for that device. Now,
it's super cool that you can do that, but I feel like only a masochist would.
Interesting enough, I think the hero experience, right, for us is the game master is definitely a PC. You need the screen real estate and that sort of stuff. The 3-column view is just super helpful, and that sort of stuff. For the player, I think a tablet is actually the hero view, because you get your character sheet and the map side by side in 2-column view, or in an over-under view. You can actually tilt the screen and get an over-under view. And that turns out to be just an incredibly good experience for a player, because they still got the tactile feel of touch, and everything's right there in front of them. It's like having your character sheet on a piece of paper in front of you, and it provides the kind of experience you want as a player.
And you don't feel like you're having a giant wall built at your table of people with laptops when you're playing in person.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that would be a thing as well. Do you, I mean, I've seen some people will use a VTT where like only the game master really uses it, and they'll project it on a TV that's embedded in the table or whatever.
Yeah, we built one of those. Tried that.
That's the first map sharing idea was, I had a whole bunch of miniatures, and I was like, okay, let's scale a map to replace the hand-drawn map, and put it on a flat monitor, that kind of stuff. And so we did that for a while. And then, the realization comes in that, okay, well, every time I change a map, I've got to move all the miniatures. Every time I scroll, I've got to move all the miniatures and that kind of stuff. At some point, you go, and like, a token would just be so much better.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, if I've got tokens, like, it's pretty easy to find or create digital tokens for everything, so you don't have to have hundreds of miniatures. As much as I love my hundreds of miniatures, it's like I never have enough gnolls, or I never have enough goblins, or I never have enough of this or that or the other thing. Right, so you end up with dice sitting on the screen anyway. Right?
So Scry Society wants to know, if a publisher brings their content to Shard, are they able to publish that content elsewhere?
Well, Nerdarchy, how many different platforms are you guys on?
We are on. We're at a bunch of places. So this will be the third VTT. And we also sell our books over on Nord Games, over on our own website.
Sure.
So
the answer is yes. Of course, we don't believe in exclusive contracts. The publisher owns their content. They have the right to publish it anywhere they see fit and to whatever audience they see fit. We'd love to have you on our platform, and we'd love to help you sell some content. So that's the end of our pitch for a publisher. We don't say, oh yeah, if you do it for us, we'll give you 2% more because you're exclusive on our platform. That's not a pitch we'd ever make.
So how big is the community over there? How easy, if I go over there, will it be for me to find a game to jump into?
It's getting easier and easier. There's an adventure guild that runs games practically weekly. The Midcard Adventures crew that supports Cobalt Press is now getting spun up to do Midcard games on Shard. So that Adventurers League sort of thing, Midcard Adventures is coming to Shard. It seems like in our looking for game group, there's always somebody recruiting players. There's always a GM posting, hey, I've got 2 slots for this game or that game on a recurring basis or as a one shot or whatever else. So if you're on, especially on our Discord community, you'll find a game. Like, it may take a few days, but you'll find a game there.
That makes a lot of sense with the Midcard Crew. I mean, for every kobold you see, there's like 50 you don't.
That's exactly right.
They're like the cockroach of the D&D world.
Yeah. And so we ourselves right now are running, Empire of Ghouls came over from, was the first campaign from Cobalt Press on Shard. And so I'm actually running that campaign for my group right now. And that's a lot of fun. It's a great campaign. So.
Nice.
And it starts with a kobold. It starts with the first character you meet, the first NPC you meet is a kobold serving cockroach stew. So there you go.
Yum.
You nailed it.
What is like some unexpected feedback you've gotten about the product that maybe you didn't see coming?
I think the most, that one Darren referenced earlier when we were, we just hadn't thought about it because we were in person play, to start with, was, hey, maybe only 50% of the people will use a digital dice roller, but those are 50% that won't use your platform if you don't have it, right? Was sort of the way the feedback was couched, right? And we went, yeah, that's obvious. And so 2 days later, we had a digital dice roller built in, right? Yes, for all of you that think, D&D Beyond spent 3 years doing a digital dice roller, we did it in 2 days. And that's, that's the way it is, right? It's just a random number generator, folks, with some images.
I feel like
software.
I feel like every gamer who's ever had like a rudimentary computer science class has made a dice roller
Yes.
from back when I was playing like 20 years ago. So
Of course.
maybe
Of
not
course.
quite as pretty as the ones you can find now, but
Yeah.
Right.
I think,
And the question is, how important is the physics engine to you? Right.
yeah.
Is the seeing a polyhedral roll across the table, right? That works really great on a PC. Try doing it on a phone, right? And the amount of compute power it takes to do, right? It's not something that any of our audiences said, oh yeah, we got to have that. They're like, no, the dice roll is beautiful. I've got my choice of skins for the dice. Looks great, right? That's the feedback we get.
I think the most complicated feedback is around dynamic lighting.
Yep.
And this is something that we haven't invested in at this point, partly because it's really expensive on things like phones and other stuff, and then also because of some of the play. But we've tried to be really open in those discussions with the community about, why we've chosen this or that. And I think it's given a little bit of a voice in that there are the people that feel really strongly one way and people that feel really strongly the other way. And we've gotten to watch a lot of debates that the community is having with itself as to what are the priorities rather than having to be in the middle of all of that. It's not easy to figure out where to draw that line.
Right. So at what point is a shared experience in fog enough? And at what point do you absolutely have to know that my character can see 50 feet and yours can only see 30? Right. And when that character who can see 50 feet it reveals a secret on the map that the DM wasn't yet ready to reveal, is that a good thing or not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done like a really dumbed down version for my home group where I literally just put a map up using Dungeon Fog, and I would do like this one token is your party, and I would only do it so I would just reveal like a room at a time, not based off of how far they could see or whatever, just to give them like a general idea of what
right.
tactically what things looked like.
Well, I think
Right.
the hardest question is, where do you kind of draw the line between it's a role-playing game versus it's switched to a full-blown video game, right? And video games are great, role-playing games are great, but I'm not sure that the complete mix together is as ideal as it might otherwise be, right? So, do you want your characters to go and explore individually by moving their tokens around, or do you want to have that shared discussion where you're, describing what's happening and you're working through it as a group? And how do you get the right balance there, not just for one game, but for the variety of games that people play, right? Because the fact is, there are the people that never want to see anything and it's all theater of the mind, and the ones that want to see it in 3D reality with, as realistic as possible, and like trying to figure out where is the right mix of things in that it's a complicated discussion, right? I don't think that there's, a one size fits all, but there are limited resources for writing it and there's limited resources for running it. So those things have to kind of impact, how we make decisions.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because right now there's a Kickstarter for a project that is like, I don't even know what to call it is. I don't know that it's a VTT per se, but it's like this virtual reality version of playing D&D with your friends, and like there's a virtual table and everything. And one of the things you could do is have a first person view from your mini. And I was like, I don't like that because that just makes me think of first person shooters, and I'm just going to be stuck in the corner and I won't be able to go anywhere. I'm like terrible with that kind of stuff.
Well, it's one of those things that like there's good and bad around seeing it, right? Like when you get that visual experience, it can be, you get that, but you also lose something there as well, right? It's like the scariest horror movies are the ones that never show you what's happening, right? Like when you use your own imagination, you end up with the most interesting settings rather than having it all laid out. But if you don't lay anything out, it's hard to have a story and it's hard to have that discussion. So you need a little bit of both, and figuring out what that combination is. I don't, it's one of those things that when you're playing, you don't think a lot about, but as us building tools and trying to prioritize stuff, we end up having to spend a lot of time thinking about in that way. And it's not an easy choice.
Yeah. To your point earlier, Dave, about using Dungeon Fog, I use Dungeon Fog to create maps all the time, right? And you can create a relatively nice looking map, full color map pretty quickly in that tool, right? But if you had to go in and then define where are all the light sources, what regions are where, how does, this, what's the elevation change from here to there in order to get lighting right? Right. You'll spend twice as long on that map doing that stuff as you did actually drawing the map and getting to the point where you're doing it. And then when you import it into whatever VT tool you're going to go, you'll spend again another swath of time doing that. And the question is the result worth it? Right? Is it worth the amount of time? If it causes you to be less flexible in your game, right? Because with us, one of the feedback we get consistently is, okay, I had this nice forest adventure planned, right, and all that kind of stuff, but my party went right rather than left, and now they're in the mountain pass, and I didn't plan for that, and I don't have any maps for it, and that kind of stuff. We've got integrated web search. So, like, if you want to go search for a mountain pass map, right, you go search for it, you drop it on, you put your tokens on, you're done. Right. But if we had to do that with a dynamically lit light map, right, and one that supported, all these virtual reality features you're talking about, like, you'd never be able to do it. Right. And so, you'd basically, if you think, there are game masters out there that railroad now, just take one on a VTT that spent, hours and hours and hours setting up lighting, and then his party went right and left instead of left. Suddenly that building that he wanted you to go into is on the right, not the left. Right. So you're being railroaded no matter what you thought. Right. And because of the amount of time they spent prepping. Whereas if you can cut down prep time, right, and make it really easy, the story takes over, right? And it's a storytelling game, and the players get to contribute to that story. And that for us is what role playing is about.
Yeah, like one of the reasons I like Dungeon Fog is because I don't feel like I need to know AutoCAD in order to make maps,
That's
right?
Exactly right.
And like I use it and do like a tenth of what that program can do, but
Sure.
it's enough to make me happy. And I don't feel like I said, I don't need to have all this other information in my head and spend a lot of time learning this stuff instead of creating the map I want it to play in the game I want to play.
Well, and that's the most interesting software, or let you do complex things in easy ways, right? Like that is the kind of the key. And like this is one of the things we talk about. Like we want people to play D&D and 5e and their role-playing games. We don't want you to play Shard.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that
Shard
makes so much sense.
Like that's not what you play, right? That's maybe the tool that helps you, but like it should be your story, and that should be the center of what's going on, not the tool.
So Shallander wants to know, how well does it do for people without no mic? I will say, like, if you can use it on your phone, then you've got a mic.
Right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And we so far have used third-party chat services like Discord and that sort of stuff for the chat component of the game. Right. We haven't actually integrated chat into the game because there's so many people that do that well and support every emoji possible and inserting pictures and all the other stuff that do that well. So whether your preferred service is Zoom or Discord or you name it, favorite chat source of thing, those things pair really well. And like Discord in particular has a mode where you can pin it directly on top of the window, right, that you're on, and your chat looks like it's integrated directly with Shard. So yeah, chat's certainly a way to go. We even have players that are, because we maintain the state, like the state is maintained on the server and everybody sees the same state, that are doing play-by-post games via Shard, right? So they're effectively something that style of game. I go and do whatever action I am, the next action might not happen for a day or 2 days or whatever else, right? It's an asynchronous mode of play, right? And people do that.
Well, one of the things is because it turns out that if you look at a lot of audio and video stuff, they use a lot of your computer resources, even when it doesn't seem like you're doing anything, just, with doing audio and video in the background. And a lot of people have said, look, I can't use other stuff because the audio and the video uses up all of my processing. But people have had very good luck using us in conjunction with most of the major audio and video streaming. And at worst come to worst, we have actually played on using the regular phone to make a call and use that as the audio, and then just use Shard as the video, as the shared tabletop with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's literally one of the reasons why I use Zoom, because I feel it's less system intensive than some of the other things out there. And my son hates it. He's like, why aren't you using Discord? Everyone uses Discord. I'm just like, get off my lawn.
Yep.
Well, and I can tell when it gets, because my fan and my laptop starts zooming up and everything gets slow because the CPU gets clocked down. So I definitely experienced that same result in a lot of those cases.
So is there anything you can reveal that's coming to Shard in the near future that maybe isn't public knowledge yet?
Well, I mean, public knowledge, like, what's known by our fans on Discord versus what's known by the general public are real different things. I think the one I talked about earlier that's not widely known in general is that Espergenesis is coming to Shard, right? So Espergenesis is a sci-fi game system built on 5e, has a completely different alternate class system and a different form of magic or magitech, if you will, in the system. And so the publisher has already signed on board. The process has started. We're deep into the modeling of that, and so there'll be play tests to participate in that this summer and launch August September timeframe when we've got everything locked down.
Have you guys had a chance to play that game yet?
I have not on the tabletop yet, because we're still in the process of modeling it, but I have played it before. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Rich Lesafleur is the lead designer and creator from Alligator Alley.
He's a great guy. And we had fantastic conversations about it. Right?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get into a game that he ran for a handful of people at PAX Unplugged when being around people was a thing.
Yeah, the other one that maybe people don't know, they know Cobalt Press is a publisher with us, but so far the stuff we brought forward from Cobalt Press has been kind of their back catalog, right? Things like Empire of Ghouls and Midgard, the Midgard Heroes Handbook, Midgard World Book, and so forth will go out later this month with everything. And so you've got Tome of Beast 2, Creature Codex, all that sort of stuff. But Scarlet Citadel is their next Kickstarter fulfill. And it's actually going to go live on VTT even before the hardbacks are available for the first time ever. And it's going live on Shard the same day it goes live on any other VTT. So it will be available with us here. They haven't said the exact launch date, but it's toward the end of May or 1st of June timeframe. So
soon
it will be available. It's already in QA. We've already been having some fun with it. So it's great. It's a great adventure. If you haven't read the abstract or didn't participate in a Kickstarter, it's a classic dungeon crawl and it's amazing. Right. So you'll love it.
Cobalt Press is like one of the holy trinity for us here at Nerdarchy for third-party publishers. I mean, there are a lot of really good ones, but like kind of the ones that have been around for a long time now. That we've had partnerships with and used their stuff is Cobalt Press, Nord Games, and Fraga Games. And they've all been like in this space for a long time, creating really good stuff.
Yeah, well, Cobalt Press has obviously got a lot of content out on our platform already. Nord's Dreaded Accursed, Ultimate Beastry Dreaded Accursed is already available. Treacherous Traps will be coming soon. So we work with Chris all the time at Nord Games. In fact, you should expect something interesting to happen with Spectacular Settlements and Dangerous Destinations in the near future.
I don't envy the person that's got to put their settlements book in there, because that thing is like huge.
Yeah, it's huge, but it's also a set of random tables that generate some very interesting results. And you can imagine that if that's in software and not in a printed form, how quickly you could generate a settlement or a building or a destination, right? And that sort of stuff. So there's going to be some interesting work going on there. And then, so Chris is great. He and Ralph and the crew over there have been fantastic to work with. They're actually the Dangerous Destinations Kickstarter included VIP tickets to play with them, and all those games are being conducted on Shards. They're actually building a dangerous destination live on Shard as a part of the game, right? And cool stuff.
So I'm gonna take one final question before we head out from Chris here. What is the timeline on rev sharing for creators?
What do you mean timeline? The rev share for a creator, essentially you set your own prices. We take a marketplace fee that if we sell it amounts to 30%. If you sell it, sell the Shard version on your website or via Patreon or whatever else, that drops to 15% fulfillment fee. And then that revenue is available for you to collect after a 7-day holding period just to prevent fraud. Right.
Okay. So that's actually faster because like Roll20 is like it pays out every 30 days. And I don't even know if there's like a waiting period. I don't pay attention. I just know it hits my PayPal every 30 days. And then I think Fantasy Grounds, they do theirs quarterly.
Right. So we again, this is one of those things we worked with creators. We wanted people that could do, that their current business models via Patreon. We wanted people that had, their own websites like Nord and Cobalt Press and that sort of stuff to be able to sell the Shard versions of things. And so, we're extremely open to what creators want to do. And as long as, the economics work for all of us, and literally the 7-day holding period is all about fraud prevention. It prevents somebody from, listing something on the site, the customer's complaining about it and the money's already gone before we can do anything about it. All right. So that's really what it's about. So.
Yeah,
and that's all live. That was the big Kickstarter thing, was to open up the marketplace. And
marketplace is live now, so you can list a product today. If you're interested in being a publisher, reach out to me at Hal at Shard Tabletop, and I'll be happy to talk to you about what we're doing.
Yeah, I can say the experience was really easy and good for me. So from personal experience, if you want to check that out for sure. As always, the links are in the descriptions. So go click away and follow Shard Tabletop. Final thoughts before we head on out?
It's been a great chat. Thanks for having us on, Dave. I really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to having Nerdarchy on Shard Tabletop. We're excited about having your products out there. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, guys. And then until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.